The smoke in the wrong place. We weren't supposed to be anywhere near a fire. That was kind of the point, off-grid hiking, no campgrounds, no trails. We'd spent 6 months planning it, following old forest maps and overlaying Google Earth, searching for forgotten routes in the North Cascades that didn't end in tourist pullouts or Instagram tent. Real wild. So when we saw the smoke, we stopped. It rose over the ridgeline about 3 miles to our north, a thin gray column twisting into the blue dusk sky. Too narrow for a bonfire. Too isolated for a burn zone. According to every park boundary map we had, printed and digital, there weren't even supposed to be cabins out there, let alone active firewatch zones. Lightning strike. Milo offered. No storms for 2 weeks, said Gwen. And it's steady. That's not burning brush. I didn't say anything. Not because I disagreed, but because I was watching the tree line underneath the smoke. There, at the very top of a rocky rise, stood a firewatch tower. Black silhouette. Wooden. 4 legs. Square platform. Old school. But it hadn't been there yesterday. And we were only a mile south of that ridge last night. We'd have seen it. We all stared at it in silence. Then the smoke cut off. Just stopped, like someone had turned off a switch. We camped half a mile away on a slope ringed with boulders and spruce. Close enough to hike to the tower the next morning. Too close, in hindsight. Because that night, something moved through our camp. Not wildlife. Not even human. Something watched. We didn't hear it. We felt it. A presence just past our firelight. Gwen said her name, very softly, was whispered by the wind. Milo swore he saw bootprints outside his tent, just one set. No approach. No exit. Just a single set circling his tent. Perfectly round. I didn't sleep. I lay there gripping the ice axe under my bag and watching the shadows flicker against my tent walls until morning. And when I finally unzipped the flap, there was a pine branch planted in the dirt just 3 feet from my tent door. Upright. Like someone had placed it there. Stuck into the end was a strip of yellow fabric. Forest Service issue. We hiked to the tower just after dawn. None of us spoke much. There was an understanding between the 3 of us that something had changed, though we didn't know how to name it yet. The air was wrong. Still. But the kind of stillness you notice because you realize you haven't heard anything else in a while. No birds. No insects. No distant wind through the branches. Just silence. The tower stood exactly where we'd seen it. 100 feet tall. Cross-braced. All wood, aged but solid. The stairs wrapped around a central post, leading to the ranger's cabin at the top. It was pristine. No rot. No damage. No sign of neglect. Even the planks looked recently sanded. And someone was up there. We saw him as soon as we came into view, standing perfectly still behind the windows, one hand pressed to the glass. Watching us. Gwen raised her hand slowly and waved. The man didn't move. Then, a second later, he did wave. Slowly. But he never lowered the hand from the glass. Instead, he raised his other hand and waved with both arms. Back and forth. Like he was trying to signal us. Think he needs help? Milo asked. I started to answer, then realized something. He wasn't blinking. Not once, in the full minute we watched him, did the man blink. Maybe it's a mannequin, Gwen said quietly. I shook my head. You saw him move. She nodded. We called up to him. No answer. Then Milo shouted, Hey! You need help? The man stopped waving. He stepped back into shadow. We climbed the stairs. The air felt warmer the higher we climbed, too warm for the elevation. Halfway up, we began to smell wood smoke again. But there was no smoke. No visible fire. Just the scent of embers and pine resin, mixed with something burnt. Not wood. Air. The trapdoor to the cabin was closed, padlocked from the outside. There were claw marks in the wood. Fresh ones. 5 lines, deep and deliberate, scoring across the frame like something had tried to get out. Milo bent down and looked through a crack in the boards. Empty, he whispered. Wasn't a minute ago, Gwen said. We turned to look out at the valley. And then we saw it. A second tower. In the distance. South of us. Black silhouette. 4 legs. No smoke. A figure inside, barely visible, waving with one hand. I thought you said there weren't any towers on the map, Gwen whispered. There aren't, I said. And then the tower we stood in began to creak. Deep, groaning wooden sounds. Not from wind, not from age. From movement. I looked down the stairs, and saw nothing but shadow. The bottom of the staircase was gone. We were stuck. The bottom 30 feet of the staircase were no longer visible, not broken, not rotted, just missing. As if the base of the tower had been erased from the world. We were 100 feet up, standing on a platform that now floated above an impossible drop. No ground. No forest. Just void. Gwen tested the first few steps down and stopped when her foot touched air. It's not there, she whispered. There's nothing under us. I crouched beside her. It's an illusion, maybe. A mirage. Mirages don't erase matter. Milo turned to the trapdoor. What if we go back into the cabin? We hadn't opened the trapdoor yet. It still bore those claw marks. Deep, angry lines that hadn't splintered the wood so much as pulled it outward. Like the thing inside had been dragging its fingers along the grain, waiting. We're safer out here, I said. Safer on a platform with no way down? Gwen asked. She had a point. I knelt by the lock. It was old iron, but the clasp was half rotted. With a few strikes from the butt of my multi-tool, the metal gave way. The trapdoor creaked open. The heat hit us instantly. It wasn't heat like fire. Not radiant. Not rushing upward. Just a still, suffocating warmth, like opening an old attic filled with breath that didn't belong to you. Inside, the cabin was small and dustless. A single wooden chair faced the back window. A folded ranger's uniform sat neatly atop it, as if waiting for a body. And in the center of the room, scrawled in what looked like charcoal, was a spiral, drawn over and over again in the shape of an eye. Milo stepped inside. Don't, Gwen started. But he was already crouching, touching the spiral with 2 fingers. It's not ash, he said. It's soot. From burning pine. He touched it to his nose and froze. Then he whispered, it smells like someone I used to know. I stepped beside him. The spiral was pulsing. Not physically. Just in perception. A slow rhythm. Like breath. Inhale. Exhale. You hear that? Gwen asked. We listened. No birds. No wind. Just breathing. Coming from the corners of the room. Not from us. Something else was breathing with us. Then the lights changed. I don't mean the room brightened. I mean the quality of light itself shifted. Turned amber, then orange, then deep red. Not from outside, not from the sun. From the wood. It glowed. The spiral brightened. The uniform on the chair smoldered. And behind us, the trapdoor slammed shut. We turned. Milo stepped forward and reached for it, but his foot sank through the floor. Not broke through. Sank. Like the floor had become liquid or melted resin or tar. He screamed and yanked his leg back. Steam hissed from the hem of his pants. Don't touch the wood, I said. Too late. The chair caught fire. Silent flames. No crackling, no smoke. Just pure, flickering orange rising in dead air. It didn't move like normal fire. It didn't bend to the heat or flicker against current. It moved with intent. And then we saw the figure. Outside the window. Standing on the railing of the tower across the valley. Still. Watching. Waving again. We managed to pry the trapdoor open again using a hiking pole. Whatever force had sealed it was gone, or maybe had moved on. As soon as we opened it, the glow from the floor disappeared. The heat dropped. We scrambled out fast. Milo was limping now. The burn on his leg had blistered already, angry and black. From the platform above, we could now see into the valley clearly. There were more towers. Not just 2. 5. Maybe 6. Each identical. Black. Sharp silhouettes in the mist. All of them had figures in them. Some still. Some moving. One waved. One pointed. One turned away, disappearing into the cabin behind it. They were positioned in a spiral, one surrounding us. Then we heard our names. Not shouted. Whispered. From above. From the tree line. From the floorboards. Gwen. Milo. Jackson. Each one whispered by a voice that mimicked a loved one. My sister. Gwen's old roommate. Milo's father, who'd been dead for 3 years. Do not answer it, Gwen hissed. Don't speak back. The platform trembled. Not from wind. From movement. Below us, the missing stairs had reappeared, but they twisted. Not downward. Sideways. Forming a loop that fed back into themselves. An impossible spiral of step. Milo stared down at them and muttered, "It's like an Escher drawing." And then the stairs spoke. They didn't creak. They said our names. Carved into the grain, blackened and fresh, were the letters. Gwen. Milo. Jackson. Moving. Rearranging. As we stared, they shifted again. One will remain. We decided to jump. It was madness, but Gwen spotted a small fir tree just off the edge of the platform, a younger one, bendable, maybe 20 feet down. If we could hit the top, grab a branch, we might survive. Gwen went first. She jumped. And she landed. On solid ground. The missing staircase was gone again. I pushed Milo. He fell beside her. Then I jumped. My foot hit the edge of something soft. I sank into the ground like it was sponge. And then, I was back at the base of the tower. Standing. Alone. No sign of Gwen. No sign of Milo. The forest was back. The birds were back. And the firewatch tower? It was empty. Except, the name tag on the uniform in the ashes? It said J. Miller. My name. My boots crunched against pine needles, but the forest felt wrong now, too crisp, too staged. Like someone had rebuilt it after I left, piece by piece, branch by branch, with too much care. I turned in place, trying to make sense of the clearing. The firewatch tower stood untouched. No smoke. No embers. No Gwen. No Milo. Just the structure and the uniform folded neatly on the platform 100 feet above. But the name on the badge was still clear. J. Miller. My name. Except I'd never worked here. I'd never applied to the Forestry Service. My hand moved instinctively to my chest, and froze. There was fabric. Stiff. Starched. The same beige canvas that had been folded on the chair. I looked down. I was wearing the ranger's uniform. Not the backpacker gear I'd been wearing an hour ago. I ripped at the collar and found stitching. Thick, black thread up the neck seam, just beneath the jaw. I wasn't bleeding. I wasn't even bruised. But something had changed. I backed away from the tower, but the trees behind me pressed inward. Every direction looked the same. And then I saw someone else at the edge of the woods. A girl in a hooded parka. She was holding a camera and squinting at the trail marker. Her friends stood behind her, adjusting their pack. They were new. And they were coming toward the tower. I wanted to yell, to warn them, to scream "Don't come here," but my mouth didn't move. Instead, I stepped onto the trail. And raised my hand. And waved. Story 2. His cabin faced the wrong way. It was supposed to be a weekend recon. Just me and Ellie checking abandoned fire roads for rerouting potential. A budget thing. The park was cutting back, and our station got stuck with the leftovers. We weren't even supposed to leave the main trails. But then we found the cabin. It was maybe half a mile off the mapped grid. Totally intact. Shutters closed. Door slightly ajar. I noticed the first wrong thing before we even stepped close. Ellie was still 20 feet behind me when she said, "Isn't it weird?" "What?" She pointed at the roofline. "The porch is facing the slope. Not the clearing. Like someone built it to look away from where people would come." She was right. The cabin was nestled into a downward slope with its back to the open trail. Its only windows faced the cliffside, not the trail. It didn't make sense. Still, curiosity beat protocol. We knocked. No answer. We pushed open the door. It wasn't dusty. It wasn't abandoned. There was a pot of water warming on the stove. An oil lantern still swaying gently. And the fire in the hearth had just burned out. On the table sat a worn ranger's notebook. I flipped it open. No name. No dates. Just one entry written over and over again on every page. Face away. Face away. Face away. Face away. Face away. Ellie stepped backward. Let's go. And then the door slammed behind us. No wind. No latch. Just pressure. I turned, but the door was gone. I don't mean closed. I mean not there. In its place was a solid log wall. We spun. The windows, too. Gone. 4 walls. No exits. Then something stirred in the hearth. A voice, dry as ash. You came the wrong way. We backed toward the far corner, but the shadows were moving now. Ellie reached for her phone. Dead. I opened the ranger's notebook again. The last page had changed. It said, "You turned. Now it's watching." And the floor began to breathe. Not quake. Not shake. Breathe. Boards expanding, contracting. A slow inhale. A slower exhale. And behind the fireplace, the wall split, revealing a spiral staircase descending into the dark. Ellie looked at me. We don't have a choice. We stepped down. One breath at a time. The air changed by the 3rd step. It was still. Too still. Like sound itself had been muffled. We didn't speak. Not even a whisper. It felt wrong to break the silence. Felt like something was listening for noise. The spiral staircase coiled tighter than it should have. Too many turns for the size of the cabin. We should have been underground by now, but the walls stayed timbered like we were still in the house. Then Ellie reached out, halting me. A side door. Not part of the original structure. She pressed it with the edge of her hand, barely breathing, and it creaked open. Beyond it was a narrow hallway lined with mirrors. At least, that's what we thought. Until the first one blinked. It wasn't a reflection. It was a window. On the other side, someone stood facing away from us in a ranger uniform, motionless. Another window. Another person. Another ranger. All different. All frozen in place. Some old. Some young. Some had fresh blood on their collars. One had his arms wrapped tight around his chest like he was trying to hold himself together. And on the 4th window, Ellie gasped. It was me. Standing behind her. Not moving. Just watching. She spun around. Nothing. I stood 3 steps behind her. Alive. Breathing. And terrified. The wall of windows stretched on and on until we hit another doorway. This one had no handle. Etched into the wood were the words, "This is where you look back." I don't want to, Ellie whispered. Don't, I told her. We didn't. Instead, we pressed our shoulders to the door. And it gave. The door didn't lead back into the cabin. It opened into a wide room with a single wooden chair and a tall window looking out onto a mountainside. Not from the cabin. Not from this park. From nowhere we'd ever seen. The trees outside were too straight. The stars in the sky were wrong, clusters and patterns I couldn't name. Ellie stepped forward, eyes locked on the window. Then we heard it. Boot. Creaking on floorboards. Behind us. We turned. But there was no one there. Just the sound again. Closer. Ellie's breath started to hitch. She turned back to the window. Someone's in the tower, she whispered. What tower? She didn't answer. She raised a hand slowly, as if shielding her eyes from the reflection in the glass. I joined her. At first, all I saw were stars. But then, in the window's reflection, something rose up behind us. Not a man. Not a ranger. Something sewn together from pieces. Its face was pale. Its hat too small. Its fingers, 6 on each hand, stretched impossibly long as it placed both palms on the back of Ellie's head. She screamed, twisting away, but when I turned, there was no one there. Just the window. And the chair. And a spiral staircase leading up now. Ellie backed away. I don't want to go up. Neither did I. But the room started tilting. Not shaking. Tilting. Floorboards slanting. Chair sliding toward the wall. Like we were in a tower. In one of the windows, I saw fire now. Not a reflection. Actual flames, climbing trees, engulfing the base of the tower. Somewhere, above us, something was watching. And below us, something was closing. The spiral opened again. This time we climbed. We climbed to survive the flames. We climbed into the thing's territory. And with each step, I swore I could hear. Roll call. It wasn't built like the rest of the tower. The walls were smooth stone, not timber. There were no windows now. Just a single bulb overhead that flickered in slow pulses, like a heartbeat trying to remember its rhythm. Ellie collapsed to her knees, coughing smoke. I knelt beside her, clutching the floor to feel if it was hot. It wasn't, which didn't make sense. Below us, the fire had swallowed the forest floor. Above us, I didn't know. The spiral staircase ended here. Or maybe it didn't, it just stopped existing. Like the rest of the tower didn't need stairs anymore. We waited in silence. The kind that crushes your lungs. Then the wall to our left peeled open. I mean that literally. It peeled. The way old skin splits under pressure. A crack formed from ceiling to floor, curling outward, revealing another hallway, this one lined with park ranger uniforms. Each one hanging from a rusty nail. And each one had a tag beneath it. A name, a date, and a roll. Hayden Marshall, 3rd watch, July 3rd. Donovan Clark, 2nd watch, July 3rd. Ellie Roth, 1st watch, July 3rd. Her name. The tag was already there. She stood, trembling. What is this? I reached toward the wall, but a voice cut through the silence. No skipping turns. I spun. The stitched ranger was back. He wasn't stitched anymore. His head floated a few inches off his shoulders, held aloft by nothing but will. His smile was wide and wet. You came looking, he said. So now you watch. He stepped closer. No footstep. Just presence. Ellie ran. I followed. We didn't go back through the hallway of coats. We ran into the wall itself. And somehow it let us in. The hallway changed as we moved. At first it was stone. Then old drywall. Then pine boards with 1970s wallpaper peeling in long curls. It smelled like mildew and printer ink. And then we came to a room with phones. Rows of rotary phones on mismatched desks. No chairs. Every phone was ringing. Ellie didn't stop. She ran to the far end and shoved through the last door, and we spilled out into daylight. Real daylight. The forest was quiet. Birds chirped. The fire tower in the distance was untouched. Not a scorch mark in sight. It was 7 a.m. exactly. Ranger booths stood empty. A hiking map flapped in the breeze. Ellie held up her arm and stared. Her watch said 7 p.m. We didn't speak until we got to the parking lot. Her car was still there. So was mine. No tow notices. No signs of time passing. But on my windshield, beneath the wiper, was a slip of paper. Burnt at the edges. Damp with dew. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Thank you for covering the 3rd shift. We'll call again next year. No signature. Just a date. July 3rd. Same as the tags. Ellie didn't wait. She got in her car and drove off with gravel skidding under her tires. I stood in the lot. And looked back at the tower. That's when I saw it. Just for a second. A figure. In the window. Not Ellie. Not me. Someone in a uniform. Watching. Blinking slowly. But never moving. A week passed. I didn't talk to Ellie. Didn't try. The tower had been sealed off by the time I worked up the courage to check again. Police tape, a ranger warning sign, the works. They called it a controlled burn accident. Said it flared up and self-contained. No investigation. No press. Nobody on Reddit cared. But I kept thinking about the note. That date. July 3rd. And the uniform hallway. It didn't make sense. Unless it wasn't supposed to. And then Ellie sent me a message. No hey. No subject. Just a link to a livestream. A wildlife feed from deep in the forest. One of those mounted motion-triggered cameras set up for researchers. It was night. Moonlight through trees, grainy black and white. For the first few minutes, nothing moved. Then the camera twitched. Not motion-triggered twitch. A mechanical one, like someone remotely adjusted the angle. I leaned in. Thought I imagined it. Then the camera zoomed. Right on cue, a ranger stepped into frame. Same waxy skin. Same badge placement. But this one had a different name tag. R. Taylor, 3rd Watch. Except he wasn't walking. He was being pulled. Like a marionette with no strings. His feet slid across the pine needles. His arms moved at different speeds. The head turned slowly toward the camera. And the second his eyes locked on the lens, the feed cut. I called Ellie 5 times. No answer. Then I got a voicemail. Her voice, but wrong somehow. Slower. You saw it too. Meet me at the visitor lodge. Tonight. Come alone. I didn't think. I just went. It looked abandoned from the outside, but the lights were on. The National Forest's Visitor Lodge was one of those old A-frame buildings with wood siding and a long ramp leading to the porch. There were cars in the lot, dusty, yes, but not ancient. Inside, I found brochures, empty coffee cups, the buzz of a soda machine. No people. No Ellie. But a sign-in log sat open on the front desk. The last entry. E. Roth, 3rd shift ride-along, 6:33 p.m. Underneath was another name. K. Burrell, transfer pending. My name. In pen I didn't write. And the timestamp was 2 minutes in the future. I checked my phone. 6:31 p.m. The walls creaked. Not from settling wood. From footsteps. I backed away, hand instinctively finding the multi-tool in my jacket pocket. The front door was suddenly locked. I didn't hear it lock. It just was. A muffled voice called from the back hallway. You came early. Not Ellie's voice. Too low. Too calm. Like it had already seen everything. I turned and ran, out the side hall, through an emergency exit. No alarm triggered. Just a heavy door slamming shut behind me. The wind howled. And I saw headlights. An old Ranger truck. The kind with rusted hubcaps and no decals. It idled at the edge of the woods, facing toward the tower trail. In the driver's seat, someone moved. Ellie? No. It was the stitched ranger. Still in uniform. Still smiling. And in the back seat, barely visible in the red brake glow, sat me. Another me. Unmoving. Unblinking. I stumbled backward, and when I looked again, the truck was gone. No tire marks. Just a damp trail in the gravel, as if something had crawled back into the forest. The next morning, I drove to the Ranger Archives in Pine Grove, a tiny town 20 minutes west of the forest edge. They had public records there, even some microfilm rolls. It was a desperation move, I admit. I didn't sleep. I kept checking my rearview mirror. Not for cars. 4 versions of myself. The Ranger I saw in the truck the night before? He hadn't just looked like me. He'd moved like me. Same nervous, shifting in the seat. Same scar on the chin. Someone had taken everything but my voice. When I got to Pine Grove's library annex, I gave the clerk a name I'd found on that wildlife camera feed. R. Taylor, 3rd Watch. She didn't blink. Just walked to a wooden drawer and handed me a thin file. No questions. The folder had a single page inside. A weathered incident report from 1963. Disappearance of Ranger Robert Taylor. Last seen on patrol near Tower 3 during off-schedule inspection. I flipped it over. Handwritten on the back, barely legible in pencil. No body. Badge found on East Trailhead. Uniform showed signs of altered stitching. Personnel rotation reassigned. Replacement submitted. There was a pattern here. Every 15 to 20 years, one of these rangers disappeared, always near Tower 3. Always off duty. The replacement showed up without ceremony. No onboarding. No paperwork. The only record was a single entry. Transfer pending. I found 4 names total. All gone. All replaced. All logged as having served on 3rd shift. I returned to the parking lot with my mind reeling and my hands shaking, and nearly walked straight into someone waiting at the car. Not Ellie. Not me. The old man from the first fire. The one who'd warned us about the new guy. Only this time he looked right at me and said, "You have to break the chain." What chain? He lifted his hand, missing 2 fingers, and pointed toward the forest. Every stitch has a name. Burn the stitch and the name returns. Then he turned and walked away like his job was done. That night I went back. I hiked to Tower 3 with nothing but a flashlight, a flask, and the names I'd written down from the files. The moon was out, pale and silent. No wind. Just my boots crunching on pine needles, and the low whistle of something moving alongside me in the trees, matching my pace but never quite showing itself. The tower wasn't burning anymore. It looked rebuilt. Not repaired. Not aged. Rebuilt. Like it had never burned. The metal was clean. No soot. The door was closed. Inside, I found a logbook on the desk. It wasn't old. It was leather-bound, pristine. The cover didn't say, "Sign in." It said, "Roster." When I opened it, the first page had a list of names. R. Taylor, M. Bennett, J. Delgado, and so on. Beside each name was a stitched fragment. Threads pierced directly into the paper. Hair. Skin. Fabric. And under every name was one word. Transferred. The last page was blank, except for a single phrase. K. Burrell, 3rd shift approved. My name. Already stitched. But the thread was loose. Like it hadn't been pulled tight yet. I ran my hand over it and the paper bled. Not ink. Blood. The tower creaked. I turned to see the ranger silhouette at the door. Only it wasn't just one this time. 3 stitched rangers stood side by side, each in a uniform from a different decade. 60s, 80s, 2000s. All wearing different pieces of people. The middle one took a step forward, reached into his coat, and pulled out a length of red thread, like the kind used to bind wounds. He spoke without lips moving. "You've been logged." I don't remember grabbing the flask. Don't remember lighting the match. But I remember the flame. I remember throwing it at the desk. And I remember the sound the tower made as it screamed. Not the structure. The book. I ran as it burned. And behind me, I swear I heard the trees sigh. Like they were exhaling. Like someone had finally cut the last thread. I didn't sleep that night. I drove until I hit pavement smooth enough to forget about pine needles and firewatch towers. Ended up at a cheap motel just outside Dunbridge. Buzzing neon. One of those places that smells like bleach but still feels dirty. I locked the door. Bolted the windows. Threw the stitched roster book, what was left of it, into the motel fireplace and watched it curl in on itself like a spider's leg under flame. And for the first time in days, I sat in silence. No creaking timber. No rustling leaves. Just the hum of a mini-fridge and the twitch in my right hand that wouldn't stop. But silence doesn't always mean peace. Because around 3:12 a.m., I got a knock on the door. 3 sharp raps. I froze. Waited. A slip of paper slid under the door. I didn't want to read it. Didn't want to touch it. But I did. On the outside was a crude drawing of a ranger hat. Inside, written in that same stiff, angular hand I'd seen stitched into the book. The thread chose you. Even fire can't burn what's been bound. There was something else with the note. A single stitch. Red thread, about 3 inches long. Still warm. Still pulsing. I flushed it down the toilet, then turned every light on in the room. Didn't sleep a minute. When morning came, I checked out and went straight to the diner next door. The old kind, counter stools, powdered eggs, radio fuzz. The waitress called me sugar and poured my coffee without asking. When she handed me the check, she paused. Looked down at my name on the receipt. Then she frowned. "You got someone working firewatch in Pinegrove?" My stomach dropped. "No." She tilted her head, confused. "Well, that's funny. Some guy came in a few nights ago, looked just like you. Said he was heading back up for night rotation. Left this." She reached under the counter and handed me a ranger patch. It wasn't mine, but it had my name on it. K. Burrell. I tried to move on. Tried to go back to freelance work, odd gigs, even thought about moving to Arizona, somewhere without trees, somewhere hot and dry and unstitched. Didn't matter. Every time I saw a ranger hat, I flinched. Every time I passed a tower, even one on a tourist trail, I watched the windows, listened for breathing, waited for a knock. Ellie stopped answering my calls. Can't blame her. I think she saw it too. The red thread. The stitched names. The way reality folds around rituals too old to burn and too hidden to bury. But sometimes even rituals slip. Even stitches unravel. 3 weeks after I got back, a news story broke. Forest fire in Pine Grove. Suspected arson. Firewatch Tower 3 completely destroyed. No injuries. No survivors. No rangers reported missing. Because, according to the local department, no rangers were ever assigned to Tower 3. The article included a photo. A drone shot, looking down through the fog and smoke. You could barely see it at first, but I knew what I was looking at. Right where the tower used to stand? A spiral, burnt into the forest floor. At the center, a small box, charred but intact. Later that night, I got a call. No number. No sound. Just breathing. Then, right before the line went dead, a whisper. Roll call begins again. That's when I knew. I hadn't escaped. I'd just been rotated. Transferred into a story that writes itself. One name at a time. One stitch at a time. And the fire watcher? He's still there. Still not blinking. Still waiting. Still burning.